welcome to this deep dive, where we're going to explore the capabilities and potential risks of advanced AI. We're going to be focusing on the 2025 AI Security Report, which brings together experts from around the world, countries like Canada, Chile, China, the EU, France, Germany, India, Indonesia.
Wow.
Just to name a few.
That's a lot.
It's a neutral overview of the latest research.
Okay.
So you can be sure we're getting a balanced perspective. So what's on the table today? First, we'll look at how AI has been evolving at a mind-blowing pace.
Yeah.
Then we'll dig into some of the key risks outlined in the report, from manipulation and malicious use to broader impacts like labor market shifts and the environmental footprint of all this AI development.
It's pretty wild how fast things are changing. What's really striking about this report is it grapples with a field that's changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
5 years ago, AI could barely write a coherent paragraph. Now we have models that can hold conversations, write code, and even create videos. It's insane.
It's like every time we blink, the AI landscape is completely different. The report talks about this concept of scaling, basically throwing more and more resources at these models to train them. Can you unpack that a bit for us?
Sure. So the report highlights that computational resources used for training are increasing fourfold every year.
Wow.
The data sets used are also growing, becoming 2.5 times larger annually.
It's like building a bigger and bigger engine to power these AI models.
Yeah, exactly. But there's also this newer idea called inference scaling. Where an already trained model uses more computing power to kind of refine its solutions or even plan complex steps.
So it's not just about the size of the model, but also how much brain power it can apply to a problem.
Right.
Is that where this debate comes in about whether scaling alone can lead to human-level AI?
Exactly. Some experts are convinced that if we just keep scaling up, we'll inevitably reach a point where AI matches human intelligence. But others argue that there are fundamental limits to this approach. It's a bit like thinking that if you keep adding floors to a building, you'll eventually reach the moon.
And then there's this whole emergent abilities phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
Where these larger models suddenly display capabilities that weren't explicitly programmed. It's both fascinating and a little unsettling. Like the AI is surprising, even its creators.
Yeah, precisely. These emergent abilities make it incredibly difficult to predict what AI will be capable of, even in the short term. And the report makes a really crucial point about relying solely on benchmark performance. Just because an AI excels in a controlled test environment doesn't guarantee it will understand or function properly in the messy, unpredictable real world.
It's like assuming that someone who aced their driving test will automatically be a safe and responsible driver in any situation. So we have AI that's evolving at an unprecedented rate with capabilities we don't fully understand and can't always predict.
Right.
What does that mean when we think about the potential risks?
Well, that's where the conversation takes a turn. One of the most concerning aspects highlighted in the report is the potential for malicious use. AI's ability to generate incredibly realistic fake content, text, images, even videos, is a prime example.
This isn't just about your average Photoshop job. We're talking about AI that can create content. So convincing that it's almost impossible to distinguish from the real thing. What kind of implications does that have when we think about things like manipulation and misinformation?
The report cites research showing that even though people tend to rate AI-generated fake news as less accurate, they still share it at a similar rate to human-generated fake news.
So it spreads just as easily, even if people think it might be fake.
Yeah, basically.
That means the potential for spreading misinformation and influencing public opinion is amplified significantly. It's a chilling thought. The report also delves into AI's potential role in cyber attacks. And we're not just talking about automating simple tasks here.
Right. AI can be used to create highly sophisticated malware that's incredibly difficult to detect and defend against.
So give us an example.
Think of ransomware, which encrypts your data and demands payment for its release.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Now imagine that being powered by AI, able to adapt and learn from its targets in real time.
Yeah, that's a whole other level of scary. And then there's the potential for AI to be used in developing or enhancing bioweapons.
Yes, this is still a relatively new area of concern, but the implications are significant. The report mentions how AI could be used to predict which viruses might jump, from animals to humans, or even to accelerate autonomous chemical research.
It's not just science fiction anymore. It's a possibility we need to be prepared for.
Yeah.
So we've got manipulation, cyber attacks,
Yeah.
and even potential bioweapons. And that's not even touching on the broader societal impacts of AI, what the report calls systemic risks.
Right, systemic risks. Those are the ripple effects that extend beyond individual systems.
So give me an example.
Think about the potential disruption to the labor market as AI automates more and more tasks.
This isn't just about robots replacing factory workers. The report suggests that AI's impact will be felt across various industries and income levels. What stood out to me was the finding that workers earning around $90,000 a year are currently the most exposed to AI-driven changes.
It is a complex issue, with both potential benefits and risks. While AI may lead to job displacement in some areas, it could also create new jobs and augment existing ones. The key will be adaptability, both for individuals and for society as a whole.
So it's not about fearing AI, but understanding how it's changing the landscape of work and preparing for those changes.
Right.
And then there's the environmental impact. We don't have to think about it. But training these massive AI models requires a lot of energy.
It does. It really does. The report uses the example of Meta's Llama 3 family of LLMs.
Llama's 3.
During training, they generated a staggering 11,380 tons of CO2 equivalent emissions.
Wow.
To put that in perspective, that's roughly the same as the annual energy consumption of over 1,400 average U.S. homes.
It's crazy.
And remember, that's just the training phase.
Right.
The everyday use of AI also contributes to energy consumption.
It's a reminder that the digital world has a real-world environmental footprint.
It does.
The report also explains this concept of PUE, power usage effectiveness.
Yes.
Which measures how efficiently data centers use energy.
Right.
And while this might seem like a technical detail, it highlights the fact that even the infrastructure supporting AI has environmental consequences.
Yeah.
The good news is that there's growing research into making AI development and use more energy efficient.
That's good.
So we've got a lot to consider. The rapid pace of AI development, the potential for misuse, and these broader societal and environmental impacts.
A lot on the table.
But the question is, what can we actually do about all of this?
Yeah.
How do we harness the incredible potential of AI while mitigating the risks?
That's the million-dollar question. That's where risk management and governance come in. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive. We'll look at the challenges of predicting and mitigating these risks, as well as the ongoing efforts to establish ethical guidelines and regulations for AI development and deployment.
So stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. We just covered a lot of ground, from AI's mind-blowing advancements to the potential risks that keep experts up at night.
It's a lot to take in.
But it's not all doom and gloom. The report also dives into how we can navigate this uncharted territory through risk management and governance. So where do we even begin with something as powerful and unpredictable as AI?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the report acknowledges that predicting and mitigating AI risks is a monumental challenge. AI's capacity to learn, adapt, and even exhibit those emergent abilities we talked about makes it incredibly difficult to foresee all the potential pitfalls.
It's like trying to predict the weather a year in advance. But the weather system itself can learn and change its patterns.
Yeah.
How do you even approach that?
Well, one key principle the report emphasizes is safety by design.
Safety by design.
It's about building safety considerations into the development process from day one, rather than treating them as an afterthought.
So instead of building a powerful engine and then trying to figure out how to control it, we need to design the controls and safety mechanisms as integral parts of the engine itself.
Precisely. And to test those safety mechanisms, the report highlights the importance of red teaming.
Right.
Dedicated teams essentially try to break the system before bad actors do, proactively identifying vulnerabilities and potential for misuse.
It's like having a team of expert burglars testing your security system to find any weak points before someone actually tries to break in.
That's a great analogy. And then there's adversarial training, where AI systems are specifically trained to be robust against attacks. Think of it as giving the AI a crash course in self-defense, teaching it to anticipate and counter potential threats.
But with AI evolving so quickly, it still feels like we're playing catch-up. Is there a risk that these safeguards will become obsolete? as soon as they're implemented.
That's a very valid concern. The report acknowledges the limitations of existing risk management approaches.
Like what?
For example, benchmarks used to measure AI performance
Yeah.
often don't capture real-world complexities. It's like testing a self-driving car on a perfect closed track
Yeah.
and then expecting it to navigate rush hour traffic in a snowstorm.
Yeah, not exactly realistic.
Yeah.
And even when we identify risks,
Right.
mitigating them effectively can be a huge challenge, especially as AI systems become increasingly autonomous.
Right.
It's like you're giving them more and more responsibility without having a clear way to hold them accountable.
That leads us to a crucial point raised in the report, the lack of a clear legal framework for AI accountability.
So who's responsible when an AI system causes harm?
Exactly.
Is it the developers
The users.
or the AI itself?
Yeah.
These aren't easy questions to answer.
They're really not.
It's a bit like the early days of the internet, where the rules and regulations were struggling to keep up with the rapid pace of innovation. What's being done to address this governance gap?
The report highlights various approaches being explored. Some involve stricter regulations on data usage, mandatory safety testing for AI systems, and even the creation of entirely new regulatory bodies focused specifically on AI.
So it's a mix of adapting existing frameworks and creating entirely new ones to fit this unique technology.
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any particular models or approaches that seem to be gaining traction?
Well, it's still early days, and different countries and organizations are experimenting with different approaches.
Right.
But there's a growing global recognition of the need for effective AI governance. Organizations like the OECD and the EU are working on international guidelines and standards, and many countries are starting to enact AI-specific laws and regulations.
Sounds like there's a lot of activity, but also a lot of uncertainty.
There is.
How do we make sure these efforts keep pace with the speed of AI development?
That brings us to another crucial concept highlighted in the report, the evaluation gap.
Evaluation gap.
The tools and methods we currently use to assess AI trustworthiness aren't keeping up with the rapid evolution of these systems.
So we're building these incredibly powerful systems, but don't have reliable ways to fully understand how they work, what their limitations are, or how to ensure they'll operate safely and responsibly in all situations.
Exactly. The report emphasizes that existing safety evaluations often rely on benchmarks or controlled testing environments that don't accurately reflect real-world scenarios. And the inherent complexity of these systems makes it extremely difficult to predict their behavior in all possible contexts, especially as they become more autonomous and capable of learning and adapting on their own.
It's a bit unnerving, to be honest. It's like we're sending a ship out to explore uncharted waters without a reliable compass or navigation system.
Well, no, it's a little scary.
How do we even begin to address this evaluation gap?
Well, the report calls for more research and development of robust evaluation tools and methodologies. We need better ways to measure not just AI performance, but also its safety, fairness, and overall trustworthiness. We need to be able to understand how these systems make decisions, identify potential biases, and predict their behavior in complex and dynamic environments.
But even with the best evaluation tools, how can we be sure that AI developers will actually use them?
That's a good point.
What if prioritizing safety slows down development or puts them at a competitive disadvantage?
That's where transparency comes in. The report stresses the importance of open and transparent AI development, allowing for independent scrutiny and verification of safety claims. Imagine if pharmaceutical companies were allowed to bring drugs to market without disclosing their ingredients or clinical trial data. We wouldn't stand for it.
Right. We expect transparency in areas where safety is paramount.
Exactly.
But the reality is that many companies treat their AI development processes as trade secrets. They're hesitant to open up their code and data to the world.
That's true, and it's a significant obstacle. However, there's a growing movement towards more open and collaborative approaches in the AI field. Some companies are starting to share their research findings, code, and even data. There's increasing pressure from policymakers and the public for greater transparency.
So there's a tug of war between the desire for secrecy and the need for transparency.
Yeah, in a way it is.
It sounds like we're in this awkward in-between phase where we recognize the need for better risk management, governance, and transparency. But we're still figuring out how to achieve it in a way that balances innovation with responsibility.
That's a good summary of the current state of affairs. This report doesn't offer easy answers, but it provides a framework for thinking about the challenges and potential solutions.
Mm-hmm.
It's a call to action for policymakers, researchers, industry leaders, and even the public to work together in shaping the future of AI in a way that maximizes its benefits while minimizing its risks.
We left off talking about the evaluation gap and the tension between innovation and responsibility in AI development.
It's a tough one.
It seems like finding the right balance is key.
It really is.
This report doesn't give us a simple roadmap, but it does offer some valuable insights into how we can move forward. What are some of the key takeaways for you?
Well, I think one of the most important points is that we can't rely on technical solutions alone. Things like adversarial training and red teaming are important,
Mm-hmm.
but they're only part of the puzzle.
Okay.
We need a more holistic approach
Mm-hmm.
that combines those technical safeguards with ethical considerations, robust regulatory frameworks, and a broader societal conversation about the role of AI in our lives.
So it's not just about building safer AI,
Right.
but also about building AI for a better future.
Exactly.
How do we ensure that these systems are developed and used in a way that aligns with our values and goals as a society?
The report emphasizes that risk management isn't a one-and-done deal. It's an ongoing process that needs to adapt as AI technology advances. Think of it like maintaining a bridge. You don't just build it and forget about it. You have to constantly inspect it, reinforce it, and make adjustments to ensure it remains safe and functional as conditions change.
That's a great point. We can't just set up some rules and assume everything will be fine. We need to be constantly monitoring, evaluating, and adjusting our approach as AI evolves.
Right.
And it's not just up to experts and policymakers,
No,
right?
no, absolutely not.
The report talks about the roles of different stakeholders
Yeah.
in managing AI risks.
Yes, everyone has a part to play. The developers who create these systems, the policymakers who set the rules, and the users who interact with AI in their daily lives.
So all of us.
All of us. It's a shared responsibility that requires collaboration and open communication.
But that can be tricky when you have different groups with different priorities.
Of course.
A company focused on profit might not always prioritize safety or ethical considerations.
Yeah.
In the same way as a government agency or a public interest group.
Yeah.
How do we reconcile those competing interests?
That's one of the biggest challenges we face. The report calls for a more proactive and participatory approach to AI governance,
Okay.
involving not just experts and industry insiders, but also civil society groups, ethicists, and the general public.
It's about having a broader conversation, right?
It is.
Not just about the technical aspects of AI,
Mhm.
but also about the societal and ethical implications.
Mhm.
How do we want to see AI used?
Yeah.
What are the potential benefits we want to prioritize? And what are the risks we're not willing to accept?
Exactly. And that conversation needs to be ongoing and inclusive.
Yeah.
We need to ensure that the development and deployment of AI align with the values and goals of society as a whole, not just the interests of a select few.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. We've explored the rapid advancements in AI, the potential risks and challenges, and the ongoing efforts to manage those risks and shape the future of this technology.
That's a lot.
But what does it all mean for our listener out there? What are some key takeaways
Mm-hmm.
they can walk away with?
I think the most important message is to stay informed. The world of AI is constantly changing, and it's up to each of us to keep up with the latest developments, not just the exciting new capabilities, but also the potential risks and ethical considerations.
Knowledge is power, especially in a field that's evolving as quickly as AI.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about passively absorbing information. It's about engaging in the conversation.
Yes.
Talk to your friends, family, and colleagues about AI.
Yeah.
Share your thoughts, concerns with policymakers and industry leaders.
Right. Make your voice heard. Demand transparency and accountability from the companies developing these systems. The future of AI is being shaped right now, and everyone has a role to play in ensuring that it's a future we can all be excited about.
That's a powerful message to end on. The future of AI is not predetermined. It's something we're all actively shaping through our choices, our actions, and our voices.
Well said.
This deep dive has given us a lot to think about, and we hope it's inspired you to continue exploring this fascinating and ever-evolving world. Thanks for joining us.